Welcome to We Plus You, straight talk about conscious business collaborations. And I am delighted to have my friend Corey Jahnke with me once again. He is a wonderful co-host, and today we're going to be talking about several things. And I'm going to turn it over to him to start with one of his wonderful blogs that he just wrote about. So Corey, can you actually reel us in with our first conversation about we're going to take off with your first blog?
Well, the first blog that I wrote last week really startled people because it was called Everything Changed for Me When I Realized How Unimportant I Really Am. Customer walked in one day, it's really amazing world because we're all hooked together on Facebook as well as, customers in business. And he walked in and the short version is he said, I can't understand how you get all the stuff done that you get done when all I can do is get a beer in after work. And so I told him about some of the things that I had learned from the different seminars that I've gone to and the writing that I've done. And basically it boiled down to two things. The first one was that, hey, if you want to be really productive, you have to decide if I'm going to start doing A, what am I going to give up to open up room for that? So you have to become a quitter. If you want to focus on something, you got to quit everything else. All too often, our attention is fragmented. The world is at war to get our attention, and we've got to go to war with the world to protect that attention. And then the other thing, and I think this is really, really important, is we have to become unimportant enough to become important. And what that means is I had to make a decision that when I'm working on a project, the world can get by without me for 60 to 90 minutes. Carly, when did we become so important that we have to have the ability to connect with people at the drop of a hat? When did we become so important that we can't go anywhere without our cell phone because somebody might not be able to get in touch with us? And so I made an agreement with myself that my cell phone was not allowed in my basement where my office is. And ever since I did that, it was amazing how much work I could get done in just a very short amount of time. And then the caveat on that was the guy said, well, what about your wife and son? And I said to him, well, they know that somebody better be on fire before they come and interrupt my block time. That's what I call that 60 to 90 minutes block time. You block it out to make sure that you get your business work done, and then there's time for play. And he said, well, geez, that seems awfully selfish, awfully harsh. And I said, well, it would be, except that I'm a better me when I'm with them because I'm not sitting there wondering what it would be like to be able to finish the project I started, and I do the same thing with them. I block off my time with them, and I don't allow anything to interrupt it. My cell phone is not allowed to be part of my family time. You know what? I've been doing that now for about 8 months, and the world hasn't come to an end. What do you think about that?
Well, what you're saying is really important, and a lot of organizational time management programs will tell you that to be effective in your workplace, you have to allow chunks of time to get certain projects done. And it is, unfortunately, because of the world of technology, I mean, there's jokes when you go to the restaurants, people are sitting there at the restaurant and they're texting, and they're looking up and talking to someone, then they're down texting. I mean, family time is no longer family time. Everyone's down there texting, right? So it's really important that we establish times, like you said, block times. You can call it whatever you want, your chunking time, your blocking time, your scheduling time. I don't care what you want to call it. However, it is extremely important that you do have times that you put aside for whether it be family time, whether it be chunks of time whether it be you're working on a writing project, or it is time for client time, whatever. I mean, whatever you need time for, it is very important that you put time aside for that. So I agree with you. It is so important. And we're not going to die if the cell phone is over here. You know what I'm saying? So it's not part of your life. I know people that go to sleep with their cell phones. I mean, it's really scary. I mean, I have my cell phone on, and there's 2 different settings now where you can go to airplane mode so nothing can get through at all, or what they call vibrate mode, except you can also have it where it's an asterisk or like favorite, so if it's someone like an emergency, they can still get through. So I mean, there's all these different settings now. So I like have 1 or 2 people that are on favorite, so if it's an absolute emergency, they can get through, even if it's on vibrate. I have other people that have it in an absolute airplane mode, and they don't care if it's an earthquake, people can't get through. So I mean, everybody's different. You kind of have to set your boundaries, and the same thing with clients. I mean, when I was working in the entertainment business and you're needed on call 24/7, certain clients, they would just, text you or buzz you for absolutely nothing, and you have to set boundaries. I mean, you would just never get any sleep. It'd be crazy. So you have to set boundaries, and so it is. It's really, really important. Otherwise, you're never, like you said, you're never going to get anything done, and you wonder why.
Oh yeah, and I think the other thing that you do is you train your subordinates, whether that be your family members, whether that be your coworkers. You train them to handle things. Once upon a time, the pharmacy that I work at would call me all the time. And finally, I just stopped answering, and guess what? They figured it out. And now they're better and stronger and more able to figure it out. Now they're proud of themselves for not calling. Oh, we were going to call you, but then we figured it out. And it's amazing the pride that they get. So in a way, maybe we're doing people a disservice by being available all the time. And
what you said there is so important. That's part of the codependency. I mean, that's really, we don't realize that a lot of times we're doing a disservice. And another piece of that is, like you said, training. We need to give people the tools. We need to train them to the point that they don't need to call us. If you're a good leader, they will be able to do their jobs and well. So they don't need to call us unless it really is an emergency. So you need to train your people, and also train them to the standards that you want, so you're not getting all those phone calls. And again, it's like you said, there's that, you don't want them to fail. And there's a part, I don't know, I can't explain it. There is that codependency that people are just like needy, and you're just constantly allowing them to be needy, and you're not doing them a favor, because they're not going to be able to succeed. And in essence, by constantly allowing them to kind of be that needy, you're actually letting them fail, because they're never going to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet, if you will.
Exactly. And then if you have a heart attack and die, now they don't know what to do.
Exactly.
But there's another piece that's really important, and I think that we have to really take responsibility for how we allow ourselves to be distracted on purpose. Because the work that we do when we're writing, when we're speaking, when we're getting ready for whatever it is that we are presenting, or whatever our project is, the work is hard. I mean, if we did it right, it's really, really hard work. It's gut-wrenching. So isn't it nice to be able to take that break for the Facebook blip or the email ding? Isn't that great? The problem is that every time we get distracted, it takes 4 to 6 minutes to get our focus back. And oftentimes we don't get back to where we were. So we have to take responsibility for the fact that we're allowing ourselves to be distracted on purpose because we want to take that break. And so we need to train our own selves to work much harder and much more focused, because then when we do that, the rewards are 10 times greater.
Absolutely. I also want to get to, because we were talking about this earlier, is mood. How our moods affect our day, affect our business. If we walk into the office because we've had something happen at home and we're going into a meeting and we're already not in a good mood, it is going to affect your meeting. It's going to affect everybody around you. And actually, I was just reading a study. I just watched a video. It's kind of like the yawn effect. One person yawns, everyone yawns. It's the same thing with your mood. So if you walk in and you're cranky, everyone else can be happy. And if you're moody and depressed, if you will, all of a sudden everybody else in your meeting is going to become depressed and cranky. And now your tone for the rest of the day is you have a cranky office.
Oh yeah, and I think some people specialize in what what I call being a wave person, where you'll have that person that if they're in a bad mood, it's their mission in life that everybody's in a bad mood with them. And I think that we have to take responsibility for the fact that you own your own mood. Anytime you want, you can say stop, restart, and get going. And there's a number of very simple techniques that can easily change the way the flow of the day is going. But you know what? When you're one of those up and down wave people, it makes it very difficult for people to work with you. I've actually seen studies that said that employees are better off with a person who's in a bad mood all the time than with a person who's up and down, because that uncertainty is terrible for them.
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of like, unfortunately, it's like they're walking on eggshells all the time. In a weird way, it is actually kind of like a form of abuse. It's like they don't know what's going to come next. It's like if someone's in an abusive relationship, they don't know when that next hit is going to come. It's the same thing. If someone's in this roller coaster ride energetically or, like you said, mood, it's the same thing. So they're always walking on eggshells. They never know when that next wave of grumpiness is going to come. And it obviously it's not the same thing as being hit. I'm just saying it's the same thing of being on guard. So the employees are always on guard, not knowing when that next wave of crankiness is going to come. However, energetically, what most people don't get, though, it's the same stress. I know I can't explain it. It is, unfortunately, the same thing. The cortisol level goes up. Even though it's not the same physical impact, it is actually energetically to the body. It's the same hormone that goes up. They've actually done studies on this. It's actually quite fascinating.
Oh,
so
sure.
The same hormone goes up. So they're constantly on edge, and they're waiting for that next wave of crankiness to come up, or when the boss is going to come out screaming. And so their cortisol levels go up. So they're always walking on eggshells, wondering when that next thing is going to happen.
Oh, yeah, and studies have shown time and time again that optimists outperform pessimists like 10 to 1. And you can see that if you look at, say, the world of sports, professional golf, for instance. What really, really separates the big-time winners versus the guys who are almost big-time winners is when a big-time winner blows a hole, he makes it up on the next hole. When somebody who could be a big-time winner blows a hole, he's got to blow the next 3 or 4 or 5 because he can't get his composure back. So I think composure and that ability to say, you know what, I can rise above whatever the situation is because that's what the situation demands, is really what separates us in business from, the masses. What really gives us an opportunity to say, you know what, we can roll with the punches, therefore there's no punches that scare us. And I think our employees really need that from us.
Well, it's the same thing in sportsmanship. You'll see the people that, like you said, will blow the next 4 holes. Those are the people that take their racket or their golf club and they throw it and they get all angry, right? So those are the same people that can't get their composure back versus a person who has blown that hole. They go right back into their mind. They go right back into that refocus. They go right back into that visualization of getting in the next hole. It's a very different mindset, very different mindset. And it's so important.
Now that you mentioned, I was wondering what your techniques for finding your own reset button are.
I just talked about this. I got interviewed yesterday, and they actually asked me to walk people through a couple exercises, and actually have several of them that are really, really fun. And I was saying that I actually tell executives, I don't care if it's in a bathroom stall. So one of them is you actually squeeze your entire body, like literally you squeeze your body like really, 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 really tight, and you actually hold your breath. And the minute you do that and then you release, you like literally let go of your breath and everything, it actually does. It's actually a recalibration of your entire electrical system.
Sure, sure.
And so that's one of them. And the other one, obviously, you've heard this a million times, is force yourself to smile. It actually resets your body. The minute you smile, even if you don't want to, it actually changes your physiology. It's like attempt to smile and then attempt to be mad. You can't. It instantly changes your physiology. But the other one, when you squeeze your entire body, I tell my clients, even if you're, because this is like, and it's really great to do before you go into meetings. Go into your office, pull your shades. I don't care if you're embarrassed. Do it behind your office desk, whatever. And I've had clients actually go in the bathroom because they're afraid for anyone to see them do it. And they just go in the bathroom stall, close the door, and just stand up straight, and they clench their entire body, hold their breath, and then release, and then they, breathe, and they go back outside, and they're completely different. But it does. It completely recalibrates their body. And the other funny thing they actually did was, like you were talking about, if there's a bunch of cranky people sitting around the meeting tables and they're all like this, it's another meeting, woe is me, right? And they have someone come in that's really positive and, like, yes, actually will change everybody's energy in the room. That they'll get a little more upbeat. So it is. It's what they call contagion. It's like a contagious energy. Like, so everyone else will start to get a little more, like upbeat a little bit. They'll start to feel a little better. So there are ways of actually shifting the energy in the entire place, whether it be through tonation of the voice, or doing some sort of fun exercise with the group, just doing fun things. Meetings, making the meetings fun. There's nothing worse than having a meeting that's so boring. It's like, why am I here? Why am I wasting my time? So you have to make meetings fun. And in the process of making the fun, also you have to make them where the outcomes are going to be something. In other words, if you're going to make a meeting and nothing's going to happen out of this meeting, why are you having the meeting anyway? The meetings have to have some sort of outcome. You're going in there to resolve something, and you want to make them fun. So, I mean, and there's a zillion ways to do that.
Oh, I agree. You know, Brian Tracy said that you need to add up the salaries of everybody in the room and make sure that the meeting actually creates more income than all those people in the room got paid to be there, or else it's a waste of your resources.
Absolutely. And I've talked to you about some of those fun ways to do that. I told you about the crazy scissors and the construction paper, and you walk in there with a problem. Okay, here's our problem. And we're actually going to take this problem and we're going to resolve this problem. And we use crayons. We make it really fun, and they're actually drawing out and using the crayons to solve the problems. Writing with the crayons instead of using pens and pencils. We make them use crayons and crazy scissors and big construction paper, just like they were kids. And my God, their whole creative sides come out. They act, it's like their 2-year-old comes out and they're drawing all these things. And I mean, I'm telling you, the amazing creativity that comes out is absolutely phenomenal. It's just like, seriously, so I've never seen so much creativity, joy, passion, and we have these big, huge. We roll out these boards, like literally chalkboards, and the eraser boards with the markers, and they just have. I mean, seriously, the brainstorming that comes out of those meetings are just phenomenal.
Oh yeah, I think that some of the major tech companies, Zappos comes to mind, don't they have some sort of a program to where people have to work a few hours a week on something that's totally unrelated to their business?
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of programs that do that now because of what it said. They're attempting to stimulate creativity. Because again, meetings can be so boring. So the point is to stimulate creativity. That has nothing to do with what you normally do. So it's team building, it's leadership building. It's just to build and stimulate creativity and fun. I mean, building that camaraderie. I can never say that word correctly, but you know what I'm saying. It's to build fun and build leadership and teamwork. Yeah, and I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines that I ever wrote in any blog post went like this. It said, if you're the kind of person that says this phrase, this is a workplace, not a fun place, you probably better rethink your career because perhaps management's not for you.
Also, environment. Make those meeting rooms fun. One company that I actually worked for, and actually several companies have been hired to go into, we make the meeting room fun. The walls are really nice. Seriously, they're not white and drab and dark. We make them really fun, bright colors, and we actually have murals painted on them. Like whatever their logos are, we actually have someone actually come in also and paint cartoons, like some sort of cartoon figures related to whatever their products are or whatever their main products are. And we make them more cartoonish, so it actually becomes like a big creative, almost like when kids draw, all their walls are just really, really creative. So we make that meeting room fun. So it's like literally like almost like a children's playroom except for adults. So you want you want that meeting room to be fun. So when they walk in, it's a fun environment. And so it stimulates childhood feelings, that stimulates the joy when you were a kid and you're playing with toys and you're playing with crayons, stimulating creativity. So when you walk into the meetings and you're brainstorming about how to solve a problem or how to stimulate economy or more finances or how to create more accounts or how to create more partnerships, is stimulating creativity.
Oh, for sure. If you go back to the world of sports again, you see a basketball player, right? And when he's stiff and he's afraid that the game's on the line, and he always shoots that ball and it always comes up short. But when he's loose and he's playing and he's just in the flow of the game, he's nailing these shots. And I think that employees work the same way. When they're loose, when they're open, their brain, it funnels, it flows, it gives them those creative impulses. It helps them see the energy of the moment and roll with it. But I think when you stiffen them up out of fear, I really do think it hinders performance.
I'm going to add one more piece to this. Food. What are you feeding your people at these meetings? A lot of times at meetings they'll have snacks. If you're feeding them donuts and sugar, you're taking them out. They're going to crash. Feed them healthy food. If you want their brains to work for you and give you good outcomes, Feed them good food. That means like nuts and fruits and healthy proteins. Don't feed them garbage food because their bodies are going to crash. It's like, how many times at like Halloween, you get the sugar crash. So you're feeding a lot of candy and their sugars spike up and then they crash. Or like Christmas time and Thanksgiving time. How many carbs are you eating and your body's just like, oh, I want to go take a nap. So if you're doing meetings and there's a ton of food like that that's loaded with white sugars and refined stuff and carbs, their brains aren't functioning. Give them healthy foods, healthy proteins. I don't know how many times people don't get that. So, anyway, so when I consult with companies, I'm actually throwing in some tidbits about brain food. And it's amazing how it really makes a major difference when you do that.
Yeah, this
I can't begin to tell you how much, when you feed them healthy snacks when you're having those meetings, literally, it makes, I'm not talking about the sugared water stuff. I'm talking about electrolyte waters that are not loaded with sugars. Their brains function so differently. They're much more alert, and you're going to get much better outcomes and creativity out of them. It'll blow your mind. Anyways, that's a whole other subject, but anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there because it's amazing how it works.
Oh yeah, we are the keepers of our own bodies, and we want to set that example to our employees that we are building something great here, and it's not just the finances or the structure of the company. We're trying to build great people, and you can't build great people if you're going to treat their bodies like garbage cans. And this is 2013. We know about nutrition now. We didn't know about it 30 years ago. So it's about time we break that habit.
It's amazing. It's really, I don't know, I can't begin to tell you, though, how it really makes a big difference. The same thing in entertainment business and craft services. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. So, anyways, and let's talk about a little about your second post, because we touched on a little bit just in the conversation about lousy days. But talk about actually say the title of your second post, because I thought it was a brilliant title, and then we touched about it a little bit. I just want to get into a little bit deeper.
It was a fun title to write.
I know, that's why I want you to say it.
I wrote a story called "What a Lousy Story." And so one day I'm sitting in the auto dealership about 50 miles from my house, and I'm really excited because I went there for the recall work that was only supposed to take 20 or 30 minutes. And in rural America here, you got to go 50 miles to go to the big town with all the stores, with the Olive Garden, with the Red Lobster, with 2-3 movie theaters. And so I'm excited because I'm going to go ahead and get this 20-30 minute recall work done. That makes it worth driving down there. And so I'm down there and I'm going to go shopping and I'm going to get something electronic at Best Buy, and I'm going to go for lunch, and I'm going to go to the movies. And everything is really cool, and I happen to bring a really good book called Pushing to the Front by Orson Swett Martin. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm just tooling through the book, and 20-30 minutes later, the guy walks out. I expect him to say, okay, we're all set, let's go, and he says, dude, we got a problem. And he starts talking technical talk, and I don't know what he's talking about, so I said, okay, fine, I'll just keep reading. Well, one thing led to another, and he came out and said, dude, we got a problem about 3 times. And long story short, 3.5 hours later, he finally had my keys and my release sheet in his hand. And, of course, he was just nervous. And I was happier than heck because I really, really, really enjoyed that book. And how often can you sit for 3.5 hours and just read without people bothering you? And they had sodas and water and everything. It was really great. But what was funny was, as I start to leave, he starts telling me, man, if I was you, I would have blown my stack. And I said, well, yeah, that's okay. And he said, how did you stay so patient? And I said, well, it's not really about patience. It's all about acceptance. You have a great day. And I start to walk out the door, and he says, wait. He says, I know you've been here forever, he says, but can you please help me with this? Because I'm always blowing my stack. He said, I go home, I start screaming at the wife, I start screaming at the kids, and then I really start hating myself. And so then we started talking about agendas. I really believe that we as people, one of our weakest points is we start falling in love with a future that hasn't happened yet. We create this picture in our mind of the way it's going to be, and whenever anything threatens that, we start freaking out. Well, it turns out that Mother Nature is not really interested in our agenda. In fact, how's that go, Carly? If you want to make God laugh, tell him what your plans are.
Exactly. Laughs
And
right back at you.
yeah, and so I told the guy, I said, well, so what happened was that, the universe had a different agenda for me today, so I've got two choices. I can either fight that agenda and tell myself a really lousy story, like you guys ruined my day, but then I got to carry that sucker around for the rest of the day, maybe even several days. I know people that'll carry a story around for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I said, so instead, I just changed my agenda to flow with the moment. And where else can I read for 3.5 hours? You did me a huge favor. And that just blew him away. And I said, you got to realize all relationships work like that. If I go home tonight, I might have to alter my agenda to, match with my wife and my son's agenda. I said, but if you want to be happy, you'll do that. But I really think it's critical, and I think this is a very big point. I had to learn that. That wasn't something I was born with. I used to be really, really, in love with the future that I designed, and when anything would happen with it, I would get cranky, I would get tense. And so I did a lot of studying and reading and coaching and writing and more studying on the biology of the brain and the psychology of stress. And I realized that the stress is in the resistance. The stress is never in what happens to you. It's when you try to fight the inevitable. And so I said to him, I said, you have a choice. You can't change the universe's agenda, and you can't change another person's agenda. You can either go with it or you can reject it. But rejecting another person's agenda costs an awful lot in emotional currency. And so it just kind of went like that. And it was really a great post to write because I think we've all done that. We've all just totally blown our stack over something we couldn't control, and then now we got to live with that for the rest of the day, the rest of the week. And I could tell by the way this post got shared more than 200 times in 24 hours that it really resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant, and it goes to that post in the last time we talked where I had that the graphic about the tree when we were talking about Mother Nature, how the tree has the strong trunk and the tree has the limbs, and in a hurricane, the tree just moves with the hurricane, and exactly what you're talking about. We need to learn to flow with Mother Nature or flow with the day, and if we resist, the branches of the tree are going to break. No different than how many times have you and I heard, and I guess many people have heard, literally pushing the current of the water. We can't. That's resistance. We're like, like we're not going to get anywhere if we're attempting to push the current. We need to go with the current. I mean, otherwise, it's just it's ridiculous. We're just going to beat our head against the wall, and for what? So it's just I don't know. And then again, it isn't something that we're automatically going to do. It's something that takes practice, and it's a learning curve. I, like you, have spent years beating my head against the wall, literally and figuratively, until you finally get tired of doing that. And like anything, when you get really, really tired of beating your head against the wall, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again until, you're expecting a different result and you're not going to get one. So when you finally get tired of doing the same thing over again and not getting the result, a different result, you're going to want to do something about it. So hopefully you learn and you don't do that. So, I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. You're going to eventually want to change something. And that's going to be another one. I think, who wrote a post about change? Someone recently that you and I know wrote a whole post about change that was brilliant, and I can't remember who it was. But anyways, change. We need to learn to embrace change. I love change. Because if we weren't changing, we wouldn't be growing. If we weren't growing, we wouldn't be learning. So for me, life is all transformation and it's all change. So, that's all part of it too. And that's all part of what you're talking about, is literally being able to change and go with the day. Whatever we're being thrown or tossed our way, just going with it and accepting it. Change is acceptance.
Well, and I can put that in real terms. As you know, that on Wednesday, my wife and I had our 20-year anniversary.
Yay!
And yay! And there's two things that are brought to mind in that. We are very, very different people than either one of us were 20 years ago. And so if you couldn't figure out that change together thing, then you essentially change apart, and that's where problems come. But I think the reason, somebody asked me, what's the secret to being married for a long time, and I said very simply this: I can remember the day that I decided I was done trying to change her. Isn't that funny? I mean, there was a good 3 years of my marriage that I thought that she just wasn't getting it. If I said it louder this time, maybe she'd understand. And then one day I just finally I don't know if I matured to a certain age or I just got tired of fighting against it. I said, you know what? She's going to do what she's going to do. And so I can either do it with her or I can do it against her. But if we're going to live with separate agendas, it's not going to go very well. And once I did that, then everything just, like you said, the water started flowing downhill. You certainly can't push it uphill.
No, it doesn't work very well, and it's tiring. It's so hard, and that's why a lot of the divorce rate is crazy, and that's usually why people aren't willing to work together. They aren't willing to meet each other halfway. In any marriage, one person is who they are. Everybody's got their quirks. No one's perfect. And even if you love each other to pieces, you're all going to have, each of us are going to still have a little quirkies, that are kind of going to irritate the other person. It's just natural. I don't care how much you love each other, there's going to be something that the other person does that irritates you. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's human nature. So you're either going to have to learn to love the quirks and work together, or you might as well just not be together. So like you said, when you finally figured out that Tanya's a certain way and Corey's a certain way, and learn to love each other despite whatever the little differences are, and learn to work with each other and go with each other's flow, you're married 20 years.
Yeah, and what's really important is, okay, so I'm talking about my wife, but I have these other relationships that have gone on for like 12 years, and that's with most of my coworkers. We've all been in the same room for way more hours than I spend with Tanya for 12 years. And so you can either go with each other's flow, like you said, and form sort of a symbiotic lava lamp, if you will, or you can form a bull ring. And I can tell you that if you went into my workplace, you would think it was just great, because we all just love each other, and that's how we do it. We flow. We don't flow into each other. And so when I hire, I don't even hire based on skill anymore. I look at this person and say, okay, now are you going to be able to flow like a lava lamp, or are you going to be like throwing rocks through a window? It's an amazing formula.
Well, are you going to be the bull in the china shop, or are you going to be willing to work with? And it's true. It's like, that's why all my shows have some sort of we element in it. Social we media. We plus you. It's like, if you're not willing to be a part of the we, I don't want you anywhere near me. It's like, I'm serious. It's like, you have to understand what we means. It's like, it's just, for me, I got so clear about that years ago. I do not want anyone on my team anywhere near me, even client-wise. I will not take on a client, even if they refer to me. They do not understand what we means, because I can train them. I can give them all the tools in the world, but if they're not willing to work with me, it's not going to work. It's like, I can't do the work for you. I can do the work with you, right? I can't do the work for you. It's not going to work. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's
for
like,
sure.
It just doesn't work that way. So, yeah, I totally get it. But anyways, our time is coming to an end as usual. So we are definitely going to end for the evening. So everybody, we, as usual, love your feedback. And Corey and I will be back once again another time. And actually, since my producer is telling me that we now, because we're doing so many podcasts and we're getting all sorts of notes and feedbacks by inbox, we are now going to have to leave websites as well, because even though on the videos it's showing our wonderful websites, when it goes to podcasts now, and even though it's in the descriptions, I am being told we need to announce them as well. So you can find Corey now at his wonderful new website at simplymonkeys.com, and it's a wonderful website. And as usual, you can find me at carlyalyssatHorne.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on any of our shows, just go there, and there's a tab that says "Be Our Guest." And we'll have a wonderful page that has our embedded video with our embedded podcasts and everything else. And I hope everyone has a beautiful night, and I look forward to bringing you another episode very soon. So have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.